Today we're going to be looking at Palworld. It is the open world survival crafting game from Pocket Pair. They're the company that brought you Craftopia, which is also an open world survival crafting game. But the difference between Palworld and Craftopia is that they brought something new in, which is what a lot of people have called Pokemon with guns. But that isn't strictly correct. They're pals with guns, so it's definitely totally different. It's 100% different. There's nothing close to Pokemon TM. But yeah, it's a very interesting game. It's already out. It's on sale on Steam. It has been doing insanely well. I think the numbers are 3 million or something in sales at this point, and it just seems to be going up higher, so that number is just gonna keep going up, apparently, breaking a bunch of different records. But the thing about this game, and the reason that it's caught so much attention, other than being a Pokemon game with guns, is that for some reason, all of the different aspects of the game work. And that sounds a bit like, well, it should work. You're paying for a product. It should work. But the funny thing is that a lot of survival crafting games don't work, or they're super janky. They have all of these different problems. The movement is weird, the combat is weird, it crashes every 5 seconds. We've had a lot of survival crafting games like that, and for some reason, this game doesn't do that. Which is not the highest bar, I guess you could say. But it is what it is, and for some reason, all the different aspects of the game actually work how they're supposed to. It runs pretty smoothly. Straight out the gate, I was getting 60 FPS, very little drops. That changes as you go through the game a little bit, depending on your system, obviously. But it isn't without problems. And one of the things about Craftopia was it had a lot of really cool aspects to it. It had a lot of really cool ideas, but it did have bugs and it did have problems. It did have things that weren't necessarily great that people were upset about off and on. As you can see, it's got mostly positive ratings, some mixed more recently, and that could be because of the popularity of Palworld. People might be upset that they're switching over to this other game, right? And with another game still in early access, which makes sense. But Craftopia, it did have problems, and it seems like they fixed a decent amount of those in Palworld. But the biggest aspect of it, and the thing that I think is most interesting, and that seemingly a ton of people think is most interesting, is the PAL aspect. The having 100 different monsters that you can go find. It puts a new dimension into the game, where, you know, a lot of survival crafting is making your own fun, finding things to do, and a lot of that is usually like building, getting resources. A lot of the progression in survival crafting games is crafting the next level of things. So you're exploring the world, you're getting all these resources, gathering them up, and going up the gear treadmill to the next thing. But the difference between this game and those games is you have that aspect of it, but you also have pals, and you have these monsters that you're getting, and you're discovering as you go through. So you're kind of trying to find them, trying to find better versions of them. And it's actually important to find these better versions and better pals, because they'll help you to explore by making you faster, by making you able to traverse over these different kinds of terrain that aren't necessarily easy to get over if you're just walking around. There's a lot of Breath of the Wild style climbing over things to begin with, and that changes as you go through. And speaking of Breath of the Wild, it clearly has a lot of inspiration from that game. So it feels like they've taken all of these different games, like the Breath of the Wilds, the Ark, just all of these different kinds of games, and shoved them into one thing, and for some reason it just works. I think a lot of the reason that it works is because the PALs create this really natural progression from one area to the next, because you're already trying to find new ones, right? And so that pushes you forward. Where in other survival crafting games, there isn't as much pushing you forward, except like the gear grind. And it does feel like a grind after a while. It feels like you're doing the same thing, just in a slightly different color. But PALs give you a different color. Something different to pay attention to. That's actually really fun. And it makes sense. Pokemon is one of the... I think it is the biggest franchise of anything in the world. So clearly it works, right? It's... What's more surprising is that people haven't tried it yet. And, yeah, but... So the combat in this game is a mixture. It's you fighting against these monsters. I'll call them monsters. It just feels weird to say pals. I don't know if that's just me, but it just feels weird. I'm gonna call them monsters. But yeah, you're fighting against these pals, by these monsters, by yourself and with your monsters that you've collected. So combat changes pretty organically as you're going through, because obviously monsters have different skills, they have different, just completely different abilities. A lot of them that you really want are the ones that are doing things like CCs, making it so you don't instantly die, and you can instantly die. There are areas that you'll walk into and you'll just explode. But it isn't that hard to get back up and get going again. You drop all of your stuff, so that is something to think about. But you just go and get it, and it's fine. I haven't had any situations where I've just lost everything before. It doesn't seem very easy to do that. But yeah, as you can see, sometimes your monsters get giant guns, and that's another aspect of the game that makes it unique. They don't shy away from that aspect either. There are things in the game that are, I think, definitely would not fly in Pokemon. You can capture humans, so that is a thing that you can do. They aren't as useful as the monsters, right? But it is a funny thing to do. It is very ridiculous. And a lot of the progression is getting up to the next thing, getting up to the next PAL, getting up to the next zone, being able to explore that zone when you have these better mounts with different abilities like flying, or being able to just move faster so you're not getting exploded every 5 seconds. And then there's the base building. So there is a base building aspect to it. It's pretty fleshed out. It works exactly the same as you would expect from any survival crafting game. There are different tiers of crafting tables. There's better weapons that you're making, and the pals are helping you the whole time. So they're helping you with building, they're helping you with collecting. You can get pals with specific traits that help them to do all of these things. So there's a lot of synergy in the way that you're collecting and your base building. Um, and that's kind of how progression goes. It's pretty simple at the on the face of it, but it gets decently complex, and I think that's part of what makes it compelling. There it is also multiplayer, so if you want to play with your friends, you can definitely do that. It's like 2 to 4 um, people that you can play with on just um, a normal server. Then you also have these dedicated servers that you can pay for that boost that up to 32 people, I think, is the maximum. Um, and this is where there are some problems. So the problem isn't that the game doesn't work. Um, it works pretty well, actually. I've seen way worse, that is for sure. It's not exceptionally laggy or hard to get into any of the games with your friends, but the servers can crash, and they do crash. And it's something that right now, at least, it may not be the case even a month or 2 months from now. But right now, after a period of time, the server crashes and then you have to restart it. It's not a big deal to restart it. It's not every 10 minutes or something like that. But it does happen, and it's a little bit annoying because it interrupts the gameplay, right? But everything gets saved often enough that you're not losing a bunch of things. There are some cases where you would lose, like, say you found a shiny PAL in the middle of somewhere and you just found it and then it crashes. Then you might lose that. So that kind of sucks. But it's kind of the growing pains that you expect from a new game that is way more popular than it could have been expected to be. I really doubt that they were thinking, oh, this is definitely going to get 3 million people playing it in a couple days. No, I don't think so. So there's definitely aspects of it that are still being fixed. So I would say be prepared for that. Be prepared for losing things just because of weird bugs. But there isn't a ton of it. For the most part, it just sort of works. And for the most part, you don't have to worry about that, which is surprising. It's really surprising. I think that's the big story with this game, is that it is very surprising that it kind of turned from just a meme, like a haha Pokemon with guns, that's funny, to wow, this game is actually fun and works and has a surprising amount of complexity to it already, even though it's early access. And that's another aspect to it. You have to make sure to keep your expectations to a certain level, but it is still growing. It is still changing, and it's going to change, I think, quite a bit over time because now they have the capital to do pretty much whatever they want. I think it's safe to say they could do literally anything they want to. They could hire a ton of more people. They could add a ton of content. Are they going to do that? I don't know. It seems like with their track record, they have a history of adding a decent amount of stuff to their games. They did it with Craftopia. But we'll see. You kind of have to keep expectations low, I feel like. Don't get too overexcited. Even though it's a really fun game, things could go south. But for now, it's really fun. I've been having a good time with it. And I think that most people that want to play a survival crafting game, this is a good choice, and it has a good value right now, even as it is. So it is $26.99 on Steam on sale. I think, and then whenever the sale goes away, it's going to be $29.99. It is available on Steam. I think that's the only place that it's available. Judging by the website, it seems like that is it for now. I could see it coming to other places eventually, but right now it seems that is the only place. Yeah, if you're interested in this sort of game, I would give it a try. I think you can try it out on Game Pass right now too. So that's like $10. You can get Game Pass, try it out, see if you like it, and then if you do, buy it on Steam. Do be aware that on Game Pass you can't use dedicated servers. So it's I think it's actually on Xbox too. Now that I think about it, which but yeah. Anyway, it's on Game Pass. You can only do 2 to 4 people on Game Pass. You can't do dedicated servers. On Steam, you can do dedicated server and boost that up to 32 people, but it is going to cost extra. So yeah, I would say give this game a try. Palworld. It is available right now in early access.